guys, Pumpkin here. I've been getting some questions about the upcoming raid, the Pyramid Raid in Witch Queen, and as a Titan main, what I will be coming prepared to bring into the raid for my fire team. And this is being recorded prior to the Witch Queen releasing, so obviously artifact mods, weapon adjustments, new exotics, subclass changes, things like that aren't reflected here, but I just wanted to do a brief overview of a few of the kind of default loadouts that I'm going to have on standby, as well as some of my favorite weapons that I think are good for really high-end, difficult content like this in PvE. So the first one is my bubble build. This is Top Tree Void Titan. Important ability here is Defensive Strike. So this is your charged melee. When you get a kill with it, you give an overshield to yourself that lasts 10 to 15 seconds, I believe. Super helpful for just staying alive. Obviously stuff hits hard when contest is on, and an overshield's helpful. Additionally, you have a perk called Rallying Force with this subclass, which means that when you get a melee kill, your health is restored for you and nearby allies. That's helpful, having a consistent way to proc health regeneration by just getting melee kills. When it comes to mods, I know that a lot of builds can really spec into wells or weapon damage or buffing your super, things like that. To be totally honest, guys, I'm pretty simple when it comes to activities like this. There are two mods that I care about. A mod that allows you to consistently get charged with light, and a mod that allows you to do something with those stacks of charged with light. And so for me, the mod that I'm going to focus on is Protective Light. It's a 2 energy void combat mod, and what it does is when your shields are broken, you gain damage resistance for a certain amount of time, depending on how many stacks you have. What most people don't realize, I think, is how good this mod is. So when your shields are stripped and you go red bar, this mod kicks in and you gain 50% damage resistance from all sources. And a lot of times in my experience running GMs, running Master Vault of Glass, Master Dungeon, this can be the difference between a death and being able to stay alive and regen your health, which in a raid is super important when a currency like revive tokens is on the table. If you're able to stay alive in a moment where you otherwise might have wiped, that might come in handy later in the encounter when you might be the only person with a res token left. So in terms of getting charged with light, there's a lot of methods, but the one I use is taking charge. With the number of masterworked weapons as well as orbs that people will be generating with their super, I've just found this to be the easiest and most consistent way to become charged, because right now there's no shortage of ways to generate orbs in this game. And so for this build, the mods I combo this with are going to be Charged Up, which is a 2 energy solar mod. It allows you to get an additional stack of Charged with Light, which would bring you up to 3 stacks. And then I also will pair that with either another Charged Up mod that would get me to 4 stacks of Charged with Light in this example, or as you'll see in other builds, Supercharged, which allows me to hold an additional 2 stacks of Charged with Light. In terms of another build I have ready, it's going to be my default Missile Titan build. And honestly, guys, this is the build I would probably be running most frequently once we figure out the mechanics. Once we understand an encounter, I will probably switch off of a more survivability-based subclass like Bubble and switch to a more aggressive-based subclass on Missile Titan. And so you can see here, one of the things I forgot to mention on the first build we just looked at was my geared stat distribution, but I'll point it out here. Resilience, I think personally, is an overlooked stat in this game. I know that people treat resilience like the redheaded stepchild in Destiny, and I know there are a lot of reasons for that. In my opinion, with contest mode active, you really should not let your resilience drop below 40. If you are below 40 in a day 1 raid, almost everything is going to hit you extremely hard. I don't think that you'll get one shot by every enemy, as a lot of people make it seem, but it will be difficult to stay alive under consistent enemy fire, which in a raid setting is almost guaranteed to be present. The reason I run 6 is because when you're under light by 20 points, 6 resilience will allow you to survive something like a sniper shot or a yellow bar melee hit. Basically a powerful attack from an enemy that otherwise would normally kill you. I've tested this out, and 6 seems to be the right number for me. Whether you run 4 or whether you run 6, I would not recommend you run higher than 6. I think that even with this stat governing my class ability of Barricade coming back, I don't think anything above 6 is worth it here. Recov, I always try and have this above 100. This is the most, in my opinion, the most important stat in the game as it determines your health regen. Warlocks, this also brings back your Rift, so this is a very important stat. For day 1 purposes, I would always try and keep this at 100. For this build, I have 100 intellect, and the reason is because this build is built around the Titan Super of Middle Tree Arc. Missile Titan with the Falling Star chest piece is able to probably one-shot everything in the day 1 raid other than the raid boss. So if you think about like Wyverns in the Vault of Glass, if you think about any of the Taken Knights in Last Wish, this super will be able to instantly delete a very high, powerful, and threatening enemy, which is why I run tier 10 intellect. I don't really care about mobility or strength. I don't think those stats for a Titan are very valuable, so I don't build into them. But again, here on this loadout, you'll see I have Charged Up, I have Taking Charge, Supercharged, which gets me to 4 stacks of Charge with Light, and Protective Light. So that's kind of the mod combo that I stay within under normal circumstances. You can see the stat distribution that I have here real quick. I'll put it back to my bubble build since we didn't cover that. So for my Titan bubble build, again, tier 10 recovery, 100, I try and keep it there. 60 resilience again. I do spec in to discipline for my bubble build, and the reason why is because of suppression grenades, which function the exact same way as blinding grenades on a grenade launcher. So I can throw out my suppression grenade and enemies won't be able to attack me or see for about 5 seconds, I believe. And in an encounter where stuff hits you really hard, that's just helpful. The other build that I'm going to have ready is going to be a build that's new to me. I haven't actually ever taken this build into a day 1 raid before, but it's my Middle Tree Hammer build. At the time of recording this video, Middle Tree Hammers have not been addressed in the game. What I mean by that is there is a combo in this game that allows you to stack escalating damage perks on top of each other to where your charged melee for Middle Tree Solar Titan will be able to one-shot just about any enemy in the game. There are YouTube videos of this hammer one-phasing bosses of somebody in there by themselves. You can instantly kill a Gambit Primeval with this build, especially if you stack it with something like a 1-2 punch shotgun and tractor cannon. I really think that this build is going to be nerfed prior to the raid, but if it isn't, I'll give you guys a quick overview of what it is. I combo it with the exotic Synthoceps, and so what this does is when you're surrounded by enemies, it buffs your melee range. We don't really care about that, but we do care about the melee damage that you get when you're near enemies. So surrounded, I believe, is 3 or more enemies. When that happens, your melee damage is increased on an already very potent Middle Tree Hammer melee. And so I will combo this with Melee Wellmaker. It's going to be very easy to get charged melee kills with Middle Tree Solar Titan because you should, in theory, always have your charged melee because you can pick up your hammer after you throw it. That's going to be important because what we're going to do with those solar wells that we're going to spawn from Melee Wellmaker is use Well of Life. What this mod does is when you pick up a solar elemental well, you gain 10 seconds of constant health regeneration. So whether you're taking fire or not, your health for those 10 seconds will always be coming back. When you combo this mod, Well of Life, with something like Protective Light, even in like Master Raid and Master Dungeon level content, I have found this to make you basically unkillable. So if this does not get nerfed, it is very possible that I might be running something like this for a majority of the ad clear encounters where something like DPS isn't necessarily important. So Syntheseps is a good exotic to pair with this build, as is Hallowfire Heart, which just improves your ability regen. So a couple exotics to look at there for a Middle Tree Hammer build. The other build that I would consider running for ad clear purposes would be a Stasis build. And Stasis is just really good with locking down a large number of ads and doing good crowd control. So that's one of the pros about it. A good example would be something like the Confluxes encounter in Vault of Glass, where you have a large number of enemies, and your job is just to fend them off. And so if I were to do something like that, this is more of a specific build with Stasis. I would run something like Agar Scepter, which has a really good synergy with any Stasis subclass. You'll see here that because of the fragments that Stasis gives access to, I'm able to have a pretty good stat distribution here. Not only do I have 100 recovery, but I also have 100 discipline to get my glacial grenades back. I'm also running Precious Scars with this build. The reason is because final blows from weapons with a damage type that match your subclass, which in this example would be Stasis, create a burst of healing around you. Again, you'll get a theme with these builds. Survivability is what I'm going for on day one. And so Agar Scepter being a Stasis weapon, when I get kills with it, which is pretty easy to do, especially with the Catalyst, it'll proc a constant healing effect from Precious Scars where, again, similar to Well of Life, I'll always have my health regenerating. I'm also proccing my well mods here, and the way I'm doing that is through a solar mod called Explosive Wellmaker. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but any shatter damage that you do with Stasis, whether it's weapons, Shatter Dive, a Stasis melee, any enemy that dies to shatter damage, actually it's considered explosive damage in the game. And so if you have this mod on, it will drop a Solar Well, which we will again use for Well of Life, like we talked about earlier. So that's it in terms of the builds. So I know we've covered a lot of ground here. Again, just to recap, builds that I'm going to come prepared for as a Titan. If survivability is my goal, I will probably either run Bubble with my Sate 14 loadout, which I have here. And that gives you that charged melee to get you an overshield. You can get an overshield from your Bubble. You can regenerate health on melee kills, and so that's a defensive option. Again, another one, if it's not nerfed or fixed, would be Middle Tree Solar with that Well of Life loadout that we talked about, where you get your health back from charged melee kills, which you should technically have at all times because you can just pick up your hammer when you throw it. If you're going to run a Middle Tree Solar build, I'd highly recommend finding a shotgun with 1-2 punch on it. That allows you to significantly increase your charged melee damage by hitting an enemy with every pellet of your shotgun. So the combo would be shoot them with your shotgun, follow up with your hammer, and it should insta-kill them. Once I get familiar and I'm not so much worried about staying alive as I am clearing the encounter, I'll probably switch to Middle Tree Arc Missile Titan, just because of the damage output that this super is capable of. And then lastly, I do have my Stasis build if I want to focus on ad clear. I have the ability to do that with Precious Scars, Agar Scepter. Again, as a Titan main, these are some of the things I'm going to be ready to pivot to depending on what the scenario throws at us and what the encounter is based on. I hope this is helpful. I'm going to go ahead and cut it here because I think this is kind of a long video. But good luck to everybody who's raiding, and hopefully we can get that emblem. See you guys.